Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another video. And this is another movie stack and a chat video where I just grabbed a stack of movies and I thought let's just do a little chilled out chat. I got some water here with me, I've got the light, I'm doing it on the phone, and let's just keep it simple, talk about some films, no pressure. That's the way I like it. Just have a little discussion. I love this, I always love this as well, just grabbing movies from the shelves. And before doing this video, just really not having an idea of where we're going with it. And sometimes I think these sort of videos are a lot better because you can just kind of, look, I just love it talking about films and just picking ones that you don't necessarily talk about as much on the channel and the podcast. Don't get me wrong, there's some in there that I probably will have spoken about before, but I thought let's do this and yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to the chat of the movie. So. First movie I'm going to discuss is this one here. Godzilla. The, 2014 now. The Bryan Cranston stars in this. You have Elizabeth Olsen, Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And this is the start of the new MonsterVerse of Godzilla movies. So we've now had two Godzilla movies? Yeah, two Godzilla movies. We've had the Godzilla versus Kong movie. We've had the Kong Skull Island movie. We're gonna have a second Godzilla. I've not even seen the trailer yet for the upcoming one. So I thought the first one was really good. The Godzilla versus Kong versus Godzilla, whatever it's called. I thought it was a solid movie. But I feel like Godzilla, the first one, the 2014 one, is kind of a bit underrated. Maybe not like talked about as much. And I myself personally do prefer other ones in this franchise, this MonsterVerse franchise so far. I mean, I think the strongest one for me is Skull Island, and then second it would be the Kong versus Godzilla. But I do think it is a movie that is actually really a decent film. I think it's a good monster movie. I enjoyed it a lot more than the 90s one. Or was it 90s, the early 2000s Godzilla movie? That was one, at the time I enjoyed it at the time, but then going back to it and just watching this one, it's a lot better. I think the way it's probably looked at by a lot of fans, I think first of all, I think Godzilla is a franchise that is more for fans of that genre of movies, like the monster movies. I think it is such a very niche movie in a way. I don't think it is like even though it obviously makes a big ton of money. I feel like fans of that movie, people who are going to watch that movie over and over again and see the sequels, are going to be fans of that style of movie and then monster movies. So I think where I'm going with this is I think a lot of the fan base for that would be people who've watched the Godzilla movies from the past. The movies, over the last 50 years or so, I imagine. Obviously, Godzilla, there's been a lot of Japanese movies, hasn't there? A lot of them movies. I'll be honest, I've never watched any of the Japanese ones, even though I know they're meant to be brilliant, some of them. So, yeah, I've never watched any of them. But I just love all the mythology, and I thought, for me, what Godzilla reminds me of, I think what I like about it most, and when I see the clips of the 70s, 80s, Japanese Godzilla movies, when they say it looks like Power Rangers to me, you see Mecha Godzilla, it looks like the Dragon Zord. I love it. I think it's just super over the top. And I think it's just something different as well, seeing these modern movies where you're just seeing them big monster battles and, these big giant apes versus big dinosaurs. I think they're really fun movies. I think they're really something different to see. And I think, like I said, I think this one, Godzilla 2014, shouldn't be overlooked. I think, like I said, I think maybe fans who are diehard fans of the franchise maybe say this is just Hollywood doing Godzilla, their version of Godzilla. And that would be correct, yeah. And maybe that's overlooked by a lot of some of the major fan base more so. And it's maybe underrated a lot in this franchise. And maybe the rest of the franchise is a bit underrated. But I do think this is a solid movie. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's got a good story. And I'm looking forward to them continuing this sort of this this canon of this MonsterVerse now, because I know they're doing a few more. I think there was talk of like doing a TV show, and I don't know what's happening with that, whether that's still going on. But I hope we see more of these movies, more Godzilla movies, and I hope they just kind of like now keep on developing it and just delving into that mythology, having more villains, more monsters for Godzilla to take on, and they kind of just develop that story of Godzilla in this timeline rather than rebooting it. I kind of like done with like movies just being rebooted over and over and over again. You know, Terminator comes to mind with that. You know, I just want to see a kind of a continuous story, especially with these sort of movies that are not like your Marvel movies. These ones kind of like, you always think with these sort of movies where it could be like the last movie, because, you know, I don't know, I don't even check the box office numbers. It must have done, I'm pretty sure the Godzilla versus Kong did good money. I'm pretty sure that did really well. But like I said, you see so many franchises now who like you're really excited for, and then they just end up getting rebooted because they're not popular enough. I mean, look, one franchise that continues to do it over and over again, makes big money, is Transformers. I'm not a big fan of that franchise, but I hope the Godzilla monster franchise takes a leaf out of that book and goes and makes a ton of movies for us to enjoy as movie fans, because it's just refreshing to see something different at the cinema or at home. Next movie in the stack today, we have got the Inbetweeners movie. Now this is, wow, what year is this now? This has got to be at least 10 years old now. It's saying, oh man, 2011. That's, what, 12 years old? That is crazy. That is... So, Inbetweeners, maybe if you've never watched the UK TV show, it was started off as a TV show here in the UK on Channel 4. It had 3 seasons, three series over here. They were all obviously UK TV shows, a very short series. They're about six episodes, I'd say, each, maybe, if I wouldn't say any more than that, really, most of the time. Really just kind of took off like wildfire, the Inbetweeners. I think I got into it about season 2, because I remember a friend who I worked with at the time, she mentioned this show and she was like quoting it, and then it seemed like everyone was quoting it. Everyone started talking about the Inbetweeners. And I really got into it. I think I remember buying the DVD, which I still have in the collection. It might be actually be in the wallet, actually, that one. Bought the collection and, you know, started watching it on Channel 4 as well when the new series came out. And I absolutely loved it. I thought it was hilarious. And I think at the time as well, because I was probably in college at the time. So, you know, it felt very similar sort of vibe. I know the guys were in school and stuff. I think they were in sixth form college, so it felt like a very similar vibe. And I also felt like a lot of similarities to them guys, the Inbetweeners. Not like I'm not like a big popular, like muscular, sporty guy. And I am like an in-between guy. I think I'm, so it kind of like watching it, I was like, oh, these are like my guys. But yeah, it spawned 2 movies. I think eventually they'll end up doing a 3rd one. I hope so anyway, because I really like the movies and the cast and the stories of the Inbetweeners. But this one, they go on like a lad's holiday. It is still to this day a really funny movie. I like the first one more than the second one. I think the first one is a solid comedy movie. But I was thinking about this and like to talk about these movie chats. Do you know what got me thinking about this? Is, are we ever going to see a popular TV show, a British popular TV show, get the movie treatment again? That was, I can't really remember the last British sitcom that was popular. I think it probably was the Inbetweeners. I think that was probably the last big sitcom. Inbetweeners, like, I think before Inbetweeners, it was probably Little Britain. That was probably the last, like, and that was obviously a variety comedy show, a lot of different characters. That was huge in like the early 2000s, and like 10 years later, the Inbetweeners is super huge. But since then, I don't think we really had, and obviously you had The Office as well, and then years later they had the Ricky Gervais, the David Brent movie. But there's not really been that many that have had this. Kevin and Perry in the 90s, another one, but we've not had one in this decade yet, in the 2020s. What is going to be the comedy? because I don't really watch that many British comedies anymore. I watch a lot of like American stuff in general now. And is there a comedy out there that would be deemed big enough to get a movie, a TV show? I'm talking about comedy sitcoms, UK sitcoms. What do you? I don't think there is one, and I'd be shocked. You know, there probably will be one eventually, because everything goes round in a loop. Everything trends, music, movies, everything does go around in a loop. And I say this now, and there will be something eventually. But I don't know, is there something out there currently? Let me know if there's something, a sitcom, you watch a British sitcom you think could potentially get the same sort of movie treatment and be a big movie like the Inbetweeners. But yeah, it's such a great comedy. I really enjoyed this. I think it's really fun. Next up, with the Flash movie coming out very soon, if you're watching this round, I'm getting tongue-tied there. Take a shot. Around about the time when the Flash movie is going to be released, Batman 1989, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson as the Joker, Keaton as Batman. I did a video maybe a month or two ago on Video Tasty's channel, Gareth's channel, and he was doing like a Batman month and talking about the Batman movies, and I mentioned this one. Look, it wasn't my favourite Batman movie growing up. I kind of watched a lot more of like the Val Kilmer and the George Clooney ones a lot more, but I did watch this growing up. Keaton has never really been my favourite Batman. He's never been my Batman personally. I think Ben Affleck is actually one of the best Batman. I think he's just great in that role. I think it's a shame that he's never been given a solo movie. I'm looking forward to the fact that he is on this Batman in this Flashpoint movie, the Flash movie with Keaton as well. They're going two different Batmans. I think that's really a cool concept. But yeah, I think Affleck is a really solid Batman. But I do appreciate Keaton, and kind of, I'll be honest with you, seeing these recent trailers with Keaton returning, I am really more excited now about Keaton returning. I think it's going to be exciting to see, and it has also give me. I think it's bound to happen. A lot of people are going to maybe. I think a lot of people maybe will watch this Flash movie. Who you've got to imagine there's got to be a lot of a young audience out there who have never watched the 1989 Batman, and they're going to be going into this and they're going to be like, okay, who is this guy? Who is Batman? Will there be a realization with a lot of these younger viewers that this guy was Batman in 1989 in a movie 40 years previous? And what I think is really cool is that it's going to be some kid going into that cinema to see the Flash movie. They're going to see Keaton as Batman. They're going to be wondering, and then they're going to be like told by someone, he was actually Batman 40 years ago. And then they're going to go back and they're going to go watch this. And I'd love to just be in a room and hear, just to hear the feedback from the younger viewers on what they think of this movie now. Because after having the likes of the Christopher Nolan Batman movies and stuff like that, a totally different style of Batman. And I think Keaton's Batman in this movie is going to be very tonally different to what we saw in this. It's going to be a different world, isn't it? It's going to be, it's kind of the same continuity, but it's going to be brought forward to a new audience, and it's not going to be as cheesy as I imagine as the Batman 1989. And this is cheesy going comparing it to Christian Bale's Batman, but this compared to like the Batman of the 1960s Batman was not cheesy at all. But I think just looking back at this now, this is deemed kind of like a bit cheesy at times. But I think this is still a great movie for me. I think it's a solid movie, and I think over time I've enjoyed this and have a better appreciation for this movie over time. Yeah, great movie. The Batman, not the Batman, Batman 89. That's the Batman is the new one, isn't it? Next up, we have Looper. Looper, starring Bruce Willis, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and Emily Blunt. Definitely discussed this on the channel before. If you're watching this video, you will see it's got a lenticular cover, which I really love these covers, where you can see, it goes from the cover from Bruce Willis to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Just to give a bit of intel here, they play the same character. It's a time loop movie. Now, without spoiling the movie, basically, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, they both play a character called Joe, and they're an assassin. And basically, in this world, these assassins, they've discovered time travel, And basically, let me just read the back of it, because I'm just going to ramble. In the year 2044, time travel has not been invented, but in 30 years it will have been. In director Rian Johnson's sensational action thriller, Joe, played by Levitt and Willis, works as a looper, as a futuristic assassin who eliminates targets sent back in time by a criminal organisation. The only rule is that you do not let your target escape, even if that target is you. The rules are put to the test when Joe is called upon to close his loop and assassinate his future self, played by Willis. In failing to pull the trigger, so begins the desperate race against the clock as Joe begins to unravel his own future and older Joe's past. So he doesn't kill his future self, and then you get this really good time loop story. And I think it is probably Bruce Willis's, because obviously Bruce Willis is now highly documented in the news recently. He's had a lot of health issues, and he has now retired from acting, so he won't be doing any more movies. I think he's got Alzheimer's, I'm pretty sure. So it's really sad to hear that. But I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Bruce Willis fan, but I do like, I like Die Hard. Die Hard's a really big fan of that movie. The Jackal, that's a great one. I'm probably missing a ton of Bruce Willis movies, but I'm not like a die-hard Bruce Willis fan, but I do like him as an actor in the movies I have watched of this. But I think Looper is probably one of his last great movies he put out, because he put out a lot of movies over, I'd say, the last 15 years. And I think Looper is such a brilliant movie. Rian Johnson, who did The Last Jedi, directed this. This came out in 2012, so this is, again, quite, 11 years old now, this movie, so it's not a new movie by any means. But it's such a great story, and I love stories. This is one where I think the story is very unique, and it really, the uniqueness of the story just makes it even better. It's just such a cool sci-fi film. If you like sci-fi, Looper is up there, and when you see, there's little bits where, without spoiling this movie too much, because I think it's one of them, you spoil it too much, you really spoil the watch of this movie. But there's this kid in it where, there's a kid who what's her name? I always forget her face. What's her name? Emily Blunt. She's looking after this young child, and Bruce Willis's character is kind of intent on destroying this child. Is why he comes back in time. He thinks the answers to everything, to all his failings, basically, are to get rid of this child who becomes this certain character in the future. And Levitt's character is trying to protect him, but also facing his older self at the same time, and thinking, should he actually kill his future self? And it's such a wild story and a really cool plot to it. I really enjoy Looper. Really a great time loop movie for sure. Like I said, science fiction gold if you like sci-fi. Sci-fi, I talked about this on a pod recently, comedy and sci-fi, I feel like in cinema has just dropped off the face of the earth. And science fiction, I felt like 5 or 10 years ago we were getting a lot of solid sci-fi movies. Some of them were garbage, but there was some great ones, and Looper was definitely one of those, the top ones, the top tier ones. Next up, I want to talk about G.I. Joe The Rise of Cobra, the first G.I. Joe movie. G.I. Joe, popular toy line in the 80s, in America though. In the UK, it was actually Action Man. So Action Man was the alternative of G.I. Joe over here. They used Hasbro. They were the creators of the toys. They had a lot of the Action Man figures were based off characters of G.I. Joe, and vice versa. They do the same sort of thing with the Action Man figures. And then you had the cartoon, which was popular with G.I. Joe in the States. I don't know if the cartoon was popular over here in the 80s. I'm not too sure. But we had Action Man I think they did have an Action Man cartoon, never to the popularity of what G.I. Joe was in the States. But G.I. Joe, then we get live action movies. We've had 2 live action ones and 1 spin-off of Snake Eyes. I've enjoyed them all. I think the Snake Eyes one is decent. The first 2 G.I. Joe movies are solid. I hope they do more of these, because I really do I think the second one is probably the best I feel like they get G.I. Joe right with a lot of the stuff and a lot of the images, the sort of like the looks of the characters from the toy line, the cartoons. Don't get me wrong, I've never really watched that much of the cartoons, but just going by what I've seen visually from some of the stuff I've seen. But this first movie is really good. Channing Tatum is like kind of like the lead guy in this. This is just action, martial arts action, if you like superhero movies, G.I. Joe is going to be your jam. I just love, for me, all the different looks of the characters. You know, you got Storm Shadow, you've got Cobra Commander. So many just over the top comic-y goodness, and all these like crazy villains, crazy looking heroes. It's just a really top film for me. I love this. It's something I always enjoy watching. And I think they both made decent money as well. So I think G.I. Joe is actually a franchise that has done well at the box office. So I would not be surprised if we get a new movie. I think personally though, I think we will see it as like a reboot further down the line. Maybe The Rock will return because he was in the second one. Maybe he'll kind of like lead a third movie because he's kind of like off the grid with Black Adam and all this now. He's trying to kind of like rebuild his little franchises. So maybe he'll be like, let's go back to G.I. Joe and give the fans a G.I. Joe movie again. I'd love to see it though. I really do hope they make a G.I. Joe movie again. Even if it was continuing the spin-off, the Snake Eyes movies, maybe it'd do with that canon, because I think it was like a separate canon, it felt like anyway. Finally, let's get to the last movie of this movie stack and a chat. Return of the Jedi, celebrating 40 years this year. Man, 40 years, that is crazy. Absolutely crazy, 4 years old. Did George Lucas ever think that back in, 1977, that Star Wars would be that big? And then they, do the 3 movies, then you'd have the prequels, then you'd have the sequels, and then you have the Star Wars TV shows, all this now. No, I'd love to think, do you know when he's writing that first script? Writing that first script for that first movie, A New Hope, does he think it's going to be this big? What's he thinking? Is it just a one-off movie for him? It must be, I'd love to go and just see him writing that and be a fly on the wall and feel inside his brain what he was thinking about these characters and how far he could go with it. And it is so surreal to think that this movie, Return of the Jedi, the third movie of that original trilogy, is 40 years old. Don't get me wrong, it's not my favourite of that trilogy, but there is moments in it which I love, part of Star Wars history. I mean, like the final battle between Luke and Vader, and then Vader, obviously turning on Palpatine and the Emperor, and turning good in the end of this this epic trilogy, and helping his son, because Palpatine was going to kill Luke. Vader steps in and then he ends up dying anyway and taking off the mask. And I love then seeing the end bit, and obviously they did edits to the original VHS because it was the original actor, but then they put Anakin in from the trilogy, played by Hayden Christensen. I actually like that they put Hayden Christensen in there. It makes more canon sense. Obviously we had the original cuts that everyone still wants to see at some point. I think we will see it at some point though. I think Disney will do it just to make money and make people go to Disney Plus, put out them original edits of the original cuts of the movies prior to the remastered versions and all the re-edits and stuff they've done over the years. But yeah, it is a great movie. It's still, I think it starts off well as well in Jabba's palace and stuff, and then you have like Luke saving Han, and then like that all that is iconic as well, with Lando and Luke saving Han and Leia. That on the ship in the desert and stuff. That's an iconic scene. Boba Fett getting killed, obviously he didn't get killed, and then we see him years later in his own TV show. It is a great movie. I'm not a big fan of the Ewoks personally, but it is for Star Wars fans. It is just such a I think it ends perfectly because of some great film moments. Like I said, like I mentioned previously, it's got some special moments in there. I think it's not a masterpiece of a movie, But I think as a trilogy, if you're looking at it as the third movie in the trilogy, it works really well. And I think it just really just adds a special touch to the whole trilogy and ends it on a high note, really. And whatever you think about Star Wars after that, I know a lot of people are just, I want to watch the OG trilogy, that's it, I don't want to watch anything else. And I get that, I understand that. And kind of like, in a way, I think I can respect that, because some people just don't want to, they're just happy with that. That is to them Star Wars, and anything else is just fodder. It's just it's not Star Wars. It's just a money making thing, and I understand why people do feel that way. I personally, I enjoy anything Star Wars related. I enjoy Star Wars. I love it. I'm a big fan of the franchise, and I really love now as well looking at this. When you see this version of Luke, and then you see like the deep faking stuff they do in the Mandalorian, it's so surreal to see how much he looks like Luke, the deep fake in Return of the Jedi here. It's just unimaginable that like technology has gone that far and you can do that. And I like now that they're building bridges between like Return of the Jedi, the Mandalorian, and if you're watching the Mandalorian, it's Return of the Jedi is maybe like 10 years prior to that. So there's a lot of link up with the Return of the Jedi and the Mandalorian, the TV side of things currently. So I think it's a good watch if you're watching, say if you've never watched the OG trilogy, watch Return of the Jedi just to get a feel and enjoy them shows a bit more as well. But yeah, overall, still a great film. Vader is, to me, the best villain of all time. Superb. So that's the movie stack and a chat over and done with, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed this video today. I do really enjoy doing these little stacks and just chats and just having a chilled out talk, because sometimes it just, I always say this is my therapy, this talking about movies, and I say that like with no word of a lie. I enjoy just getting some movies, and I just enjoy deep diving into them. I think it's fun, and it is very relaxing to do, and it is nice just to share your thoughts, and I love then hearing back from people in the Movie Cheertown community about their thoughts on these movies and what they've been watching, and let me know all your thoughts on these movies in this stat today. What do you think of these movies? How do you feel about them? Let me know all your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.